really want to welcome all of you to our celebration of the life and work of Alan Resnick, the Benjamin Weintraub Professor of Bankruptcy Law. For those of you who don't know, I'm Eric Lane. I'm the Dean of the Law School and one of Alan's oldest friends. I also welcome Alan's family, his wife Jill. Where is Jill? His wife Jill, sons and daughters-in-law Craig and Hannah, and Brian and Ani, who are up here around there somewhere, and 4 of his 5 grandchildren, Maxwell, Aiden, Amelia, and Lila. Lila. Sorry. I should have known that. And one of them's missing. She's home tonight, Nora. And we are also happy that an Alan protege and our first alumni bankruptcy judge, Lou Scarcella, the class of 1997, is with us, and he'll be speaking later. And we're also happy to point out that we're also joined by the first of 2 Alan Resnick Scholars, a scholarship that many of you helped to fund over the last couple of years. Rachel Senator, where's Rachel again? I just saw her. And I didn't see Clint Post. Is he here? Okay, one of them didn't make it. Okay. Now, thank you again for all who are coming, and thank all of you who submitted remembrances, many of which we have included in the programs that you have. They certainly show the love and respect that Alan was held in by so many, many people. And we're going to proceed in the following way. First, we're going to have a listed remembrance speakers. They're in your list. And then we're going to provide anybody who wants to say something about Alan, a couple minutes, to do so at the end of that part of our program. And then when we're finished here, please join us in the atrium downstairs for some light refreshments. So the first speaker I'd like to introduce is President Stewart.
Thank you. Good evening. I served as law school dean for 11 years, and now it's almost 16 years that I've been president of the university. And part of my responsibilities, sadly, is to speak at memorials for colleagues who have passed away. And I have done more of those than I care to count. But this one is really different issue. I've never cried at any of these. I'm going to see if I can keep my my record intact. This is different because Alan, for most of our adult lives, we were best friends. We drifted apart a little when I became president because everybody in the law school drifted apart from me when I became president. When you go from we to them, I became them. But in the end, we renewed our friendship, and he knew, I am sure, that no matter what, I was here for him, and he would be here for me. And so, it's hard to speak about that on a professional rather than a personal basis. We raised our kids together. We grew up together. We got drunk on the beach in St. Martin together. So did Jill, by the way, but Jill fell asleep every time she had one of those drinks. I remember the kids when they were very little. Don't be mad at me, Brian, but you were still the fattest baby I've ever seen. They worried he would never crawl, that he was too fat to crawl. Look at the handsome, svelte person. So the other thing that makes it so hard is that I think of Alan as 35. And I thought of him as, maybe that's a lull for what I thought. I mean, he was so active and had such a zest for everything he did in his life that you couldn't imagine him passing so soon at such an age. So it's really hard to get my head around all this. I'm sure everybody in the audience feels the same way. So the first time I met Alan, he looked like that. It looked like that. I was a senior faculty member at the time. I'd been here a year and a half. You know, that at Hofstra constituted senior faculty member. And he came in for a job interview. And there's this guy with like hair down to here. And you see and actually it's neater in that picture than he was in real life. And that big mustache, and what you don't see is his bell bottoms. He had the widest bell bottoms that I've ever seen. And he came in to interview for a faculty position. I'm thinking to myself, you know, if Saturday Night Fever starred a law professor, you know, he would get the role. But this was to be on our faculty. So, and by the way, about Saturday Night Fever now, something that very few of you know, I am absolutely sure that of all the bankruptcy law professors in the country, Alan was the best dancer. He was a fabulous dancer, and that was established without a doubt at the famous Hofstra faculty dance-off, which was held on a faculty retreat at the Montauk Yacht Club, I think, arranged by a somewhat inebriated Eric Lane at the time, simply a professor, where the finals pitted Alan against John Gregory. and it was a rhythm. I mean, that white Jewish guy had rhythm. It was unbelievable what a good dancer he was. But, so I interviewed him and I completely fell in love with him. I thought, you know, bright and articulate, and he wanted to teach for all the right reasons. But then I thought I would pull a fast one on him because at the time I was teaching civil procedure, which I loved, and federal courts, which I loved. But I was teaching bankruptcy also. Why? Because the dean said I should teach bankruptcy. That's how long ago it was. You taught what the dean told you to teach. You didn't negotiate or strike or file a grievance. You had, okay, I'll teach bankruptcy. I didn't know much about bankruptcy. I was about a week ahead of the class. And I said to Alan, when he was interviewing, I said to Alan, you know, do you have any interest in teaching bankruptcy? And Alan said, sure. I mean, he was going to say he would be interested in anything at that point, right? I mean, he was applying for a job. And I thought, how smart am I? Really? How smart am I? I know that fame and fortune awaited me in teaching conflict of laws and not bankruptcy. But the rest is history. The rest is history. And so, two things I want to leave you with about Alan. First of all, I have been privileged to know and work with some terrific law professors. You know the names, some of the names are right in this room today. But when I think about it carefully, Alan was the best law professor I ever knew. In every way, you had in one professor everything that you wanted in a whole faculty. He loved the classroom. He was a great, spectacular classroom teacher. After a while, his opening and contracts got a little old. For those of you who might have taken contract, that whole thing about, do you want to play tennis? Sure. I'll meet you at 10. Oh, I changed my mind. Bridge your contract? You know, he went over that with me maybe 200 times. I think he dropped it later in his class. But he was a beloved teacher. He was an incredibly prolific scholar. And his scholarship was A, readable, and B, impactful. It's been cited in more than 150 cases. Supreme Court case, federal appellate court cases, and so on. So he was a great teacher and he was a great scholar. And he made an impact on the law. Alan made an impact on the law. He served on the advisory committee for bankruptcy rules for the Judicial Conference, and everybody said a lot of the rules that came out of there and its commentary was a reflection of Alan's thoughtful analysis and suggestion. And I know this is an anathema to some current law professors, but it wasn't to me, and that is he managed to do all of this, meet all of his responsibility, and practice bankruptcy law at the very highest levels of the profession. And you will hear more about that, about his stay at Fried Frank from Brad Scheller. But to me, It was a great advertisement for Hofstra Law School, and it kept him as current as could be on the real world of practice. And lastly, and I think maybe the rarest quality he had, was how much he loved his students. He really did. He didn't love them just before, the student-teacher evaluation started. Which many of us did. But he loved his students. He loved helping them. He loved teaching them. He loved mentoring them. He loved placing them. He became their friends. He respected and loved his students. And, I know we lost Arnold Palmer this year, and they used to call his fans Arnie's Army. But there are a gazillion bankruptcy lawyers and judges running around New York, really, who are Alan's Army. I mean, they were inspired by him and placed by him and trained by him. So he could never be replaced as a professional, in my opinion. So I think the other thing that I would say about Alan is that, since he was taken from us so early, I don't think the hurt will ever go away. But here's what I try to do. Here's what I try to do when I think about it. And I start to get sad about it. In fact, sometimes, when some of the law faculty are being particularly difficult, one of those few occasions, and I start to email, I turn around and I say, oh, well, I'll email Alan. He'll solve all this. And then I realize he's not here. But here's what I think. I've never met somebody who enjoyed his life as much as Alan. Whatever Alan did, he loved. He loved his family, his beloved Jill, the rock of the family, whose opinion, by the way, one of the few he ever listened to and trusted. Alan had a lot of confidence in his own judgment, unless Jill disagreed with him. And his fabulous children, Craig and Brian, he was so proud of you, and his daughter-in-laws, and then his beautiful and smart grandchildren. He loved teaching. He loved practice. Whatever he did, he found joy in. So for those of us who, are stricken with this tendency to go over in our minds everything we said 400 times and re-examine it, and maybe we didn't say the right thing, and it stops us from doing something else, that wasn't Alan. Alan did his thing beautifully and moved on. And so I think that, and it's soothing, I think that he had squeezed more happiness and more joy out of his 68 years than people who live much older would do. And that's the best I can do in trying to make myself and everybody else feel better. Thank you.
So I spoke to Alan Resnick almost every day for the last 5 years, usually while each of us were driving to Hofstra in our separate cars. And the call would always start like this: Alan! And he would say, Eric! And then he would provide a traffic report to me because he was always ahead driving out here. And then we would launch into a discussion of the state of the law school and whatever problems I was facing as its dean. On these calls, we would never speak about politics or sports or personal things like finances, family, or even fantasies. These topics we saved for our regular lunches at our Long Island haunt, the Coliseum Diner on Hempstead Turnpike. He would always look at the extensive menu, the many items, consider some of them, but end up with eggs over medium, and sometimes some bacon. And then an hour or so of wonderful conversation would ensue. Like Stuart, Alan and I were friends for over 40 years. We started at Hofstra Law School just after it started, and our friendship was built around, at least at first, the many struggles we shared in trying to make Hofstra Law School the best that we could make it. Those were wonderful days, filled with hard work, a go-for-it spirit, some inevitable anguish, and a lot of fun. We lunched together, played poker together, roasted each other, retreated together for such important events as gambling in Puerto Rico, and as Stuart really described to you, our famous Hofstra Law dance-off. Picture it, there he is. Long hair, sideburns, bell-bottom pants, in his best, and he had a really cool disco outfit, I can still remember it, facing off against Professor John Gregory, bald, and looking ever so cool in his best jazz wear. Actually, Stuart declared Alan the winner. I actually declared it a tie. I already had these decano qualities. Not only did we work hard, we shared each other's work. Each felt the success of the other was their success. But more importantly, Alan was my teacher, my Rav. Through thick or thin, he always wanted to know what was going on and if he could help me in any way. And he always could. No concern could be too small. And Jill, as I said one other time, I'm sure still laughs at the number of edits that he gave me, even in a one-line email. And they were all the right ones. And since I became law school dean, his teaching of me only intensified. Despite my years in teaching and in politics, I learned more from Alan Resnick about deaning than from anyone else. Patience, forbearance, clarity, honesty, respectfulness, institutional loyalty. He loved Hofstra Law School. And sometimes insistence were traits he most pressed, particularly when he sensed that those traits were abandoning me or I them. I also learned a tremendous amount about family from Alan, as Stuart alluded to himself before. For at the heart of every one of Alan's amazing successes, including his towering contributions to the field of bankruptcy law, and at the heart of all of his wise advice and wisdom was the importance of family. Everything for Alan, everything came back to family. As he once told me, his wonderful family was the foundation of his work, how he defined himself, and behind all that he did. I still speak to Alan nearly every time I drive to Hofstra. Waze has replaced his traffic advice. But Siri cannot answer the many questions I have for him. But Alan can, and he does. No, I don't stop and channel his spirit from the other side, nor does he appear like Hamlet's father's ghost in the seat next to me. No, he talks to me like every master teacher talks to his pupils. Forever, through the lessons that teacher has embedded in the mind of the student. Alan's way of thinking and his values will be with me forever, and I feel blessed to have my friend, my teacher, my Rav in my head.
Good evening. I'm Brad Scheller. For almost 42 years, Alan was my teacher and my friend. He was in every sense family to me. Not a day goes by when Alan's not with and a part of all of us. Now and always, in heart, in mind, and in spirit, Alan will remain our teacher, our mentor, and our friend. Alan's life and his legacy are extraordinary. His love of Jill, the 4 children, the 5 grandchildren, and all of the family was ever apparent and incomparable. Alan warmed the hearts of each and every one of his friends and colleagues. As professor, teacher, mentor, he left his mark and made better the lives of each and all of his students, each and all of us. To and for each of us, by example, by action, and by deed, Alan made clear that there was nothing more important and nothing more noble than to teach, to impart wisdom and insights, and to do all to ensure the best and brightest futures for all. Alan taught us that life itself is a classroom, that we are duty-bound to be of utmost help and benefit to others. Alan was tireless in his efforts to enrich the lives of all. Professor, teacher, educator, he made all of us better. With tireless effort, warmth, compassion, dedication, and commitment, Alan touched and impacted so many. Alan embraced and championed each and every one of his students. Alan transformed our lives and armed each of us with the best tools and resources of the path of career and accomplishment. With dedication to and passion for his work, Alan made pursuit of career in the bankruptcy and restructuring field vibrant and compelling. It could not be more right and fitting that this celebration of Alan's life is taking place in this, his beloved law school. Alan was Hofstra Law. If we close our eyes and listen, we can hear the cadence of his lessons. We can see the energy of his pacing back and forth across the classroom, engaging each and every student. Alan captivated and held our attention. He made subject matter vital, vibrant, and exciting. He made us feel and believe that each of us was the student he was speaking to, and that our capacity to learn, absorb, grow, and achieve was unlimited. Time in Alan's classroom was the stuff of magic. We learned from Alan that equally important to all that is written is all that is not. He taught us that our best opportunities, strategies, and ideas come from reading anew each time what is written while focusing on what is expressed. He told us that we should never lose sight of the unstated, and that we should stay close to the seams of stated and unstated, every day and in connection with every issue, problem, and project. From Alan, we learned that innovation and creativity emerge from our efforts and energy and our willingness to not only ask why, but to ask why not. Just as with his students, Alan so treasured each and all of his Hofstra faculty colleagues: Eric, Stuart, Malachi, Monroe, David, Aaron, Bert, Leon, John, and so many more. For Eric and Stuart, and for all at Hofstra, there is a void that will never be filled. In this building and in this room especially, thoughts return to late August of 1974, when as a freshly minted assistant professor of law by way first of Georgetown University School of Law and then Harvard Law School, Alan taught his inaugural Hofstra Law School class. There, then, as always, wiry and youthful, Alan stood in the front of the classroom with dark and longish hair, a mustache, impeccably dressed in a jacket and tie, all so that no one would mistake him for a student. He was 26 going on 27. On that first day of the academic year, Alan embarked on his most extraordinary career by teaching law of contracts to a section of first-year law students in their first law school class. At the age of 20, also with long hair but not in jacket and tie, I was sitting in the back row of that class taught by Alan. It was my first class as a law student. It was for me the start of 42 years of learning, collaboration, and the very best of friendship. From that moment, and every moment since, Alan has been a gift, a treasure, and a blessing in my life. Alan loved his work. He loved the law. He loved the code and rules. He loved Collier. He loved the classroom, loved his students, loved teaching, loved scholarship, and he loved Hofstra Law. As the Benjamin Weintraub Distinguished Professor of Bankruptcy Law, Alan brought renown to both Hofstra Law and to the field and practice of bankruptcy and restructuring generally. As editor-in-chief of Collier on Bankruptcy, as the co-author of Weintraub and Resnick's Bankruptcy Law Manual, in myriad articles in law journals and professional publications, by reason of his law reform contributions, both as a reporter to and member of the Advisory Committee on Bankruptcy Rules of the Judicial Conference of the United States, and as a member of the National Bankruptcy Conference. As a speaker at countless conferences and workshops, and as a member of the National Bankruptcy Conference, Alan elevated and made better our field for each and every practitioner. With expertise, mentorship, and unique ability to explain and bring clarity and understanding to the most complex concepts, Alan ranks among the greatest of educators. In his quiet, gentle, graceful way, he was a patriarch, leader, scholar, and master. He was a person dedicated to his profession, deeply concerned for the welfare of all, loyal to his colleagues and institution, and above all, he brought to his profession and field a profound sense of ethics and decency. He was a source of strength, comfort, wisdom, and security. He was always calm and collected. Save when in the classroom at the lectern when he was unique and full of energy. His tales of Jimmy the Human Fly still resonate with me. But he was a man of reserve and grace. He was the very best listener. He was not judgmental. He had an uncanny ability to make what was otherwise complex and obscure crystal clear. Outside of the classroom, Alan did not lecture, nor did he ever believe. He did not have a set of expectations of others. Instead, he lived his life by best example. He was kind, fair, and honorable. Alan did not have airs or pretense. He was always himself. He had and deserved the unconditional respect and appreciation of the countless who knew, admired, and learned from him. He was unpretentious when he had basis and qualifications to be otherwise. He was a mensch. He was my buddy. For more than 27 years, I had the extraordinary honor and privilege to have Alan as my colleague and free friend. Alan said his story to me every Thursday, and we spoke virtually every day during those 27 years. His lessons in law, in life, and more will resonate with me always. For some time after Alan's passing, I would wander into Alan's office. I would sit, I would be alone with my thoughts of my friend, and I would connect. I have also taken to reading anew so much in the way of scholarship and writing that was Alan's. Rivaled first by Ben Weintraub and later by Brian, I always believed I was the most avid of the myriad readers of Alan's work. As we wrote a bit together, with me loving every moment of the repartee and collaboration, and we wrote a bit together, Alan's voice remains ever present in my thinking. Recently, I came across some of Alan's remarks about the passing of his friend, Professor Larry King. In writing about Larry, unintentionally and unknowingly at the time, Alan had written about himself. Here from Alan, and I quote, "As a teacher, scholar, law reformer, and lawyer, he had an enormous impact on the bankruptcy world during the past half-century. He dedicated his professional life to the continuing improvement of the bankruptcy system, and through both his teaching and writing, to the education of thousands of law students, judges, lawyers, legislators, and government officials. He was one of the true giants in the bankruptcy field and will be sorely missed by his friends and colleagues in the profession. More important, millions of individuals, entrepreneurs, employers, and others who in the future will need relief from undue financial burdens lost a loyal friend and a zealous God." Close quote. Not a day will go by for any of us when we will not ask, what would Alan think, say, or do? In my head, I will continue to seek out his advice and listen to his wisdom. He was and will continue to be, for me and for countless others, the very best template. When we grapple with issues, we will find him. Alan is alive and well and always.
My name is Louis Scarcella. I'm a Hofstra Law grad and a former student of Professor Alan Resnick. Alan Resnick changed my life. In the course of our 40-year relationship, he was my teacher, my mentor, and my close friend. To a large extent, Alan Resnick made me who I am today. I first met Alan in the fall of 1974 when we started Hofstra Law School together. He was a 26-year-old first-time law professor with an LLM degree from Harvard, and I was a first-year law student, just a few years his junior. Alan was young and approachable, with long hair and eventually a mustache, grown, I suspect, to make himself look old. We met, not in the formality of the classroom, but casually in the halls of the building. And while I wasn't a student in his class at the time, he would always greet me by name whenever our paths crossed. I was in my second year when Alan became my commercial law professor and later taught my bankruptcy class. He was a brilliant legal scholar, but more importantly, he was an incredible teacher. His classes were exciting and engaging. He would introduce topics and then build on them logically, always making sure that his students understood underlying concepts before moving on. To promote a deeper understanding of the topics he covered, Not only did he explain the existing law, he also provided us with a historical perspective, detailing how and why the law had evolved. Everything he taught abstractly, he applied to real-world situations through his repeated use of hypotheticals. Anyone who has taken a bankruptcy course with Alan will have heard about the now famous Jones's shoe store. He inspired us with his passion for the law and his love of learning. If we tried to take shortcuts, he would remind us, don't be lazy, read the code. Alan made learning the law easy, and he was the best professor of Python. Alan's prodigious teaching skills were surpassed only by his dedication to the students. He was always available to give his students advice and support. He cared deeply about them, and he truly wanted them to succeed. This was certainly the case for me. While I was still in law school, as an unpaid law clerk for a bankruptcy judge in Westbury, Alan became my unofficial and equally unpaid faculty advisor. Almost daily, I would stop by his office to discuss core concepts and major themes of both consumer and business bankruptcy cases. He's helped me understand how to find the answer to any bankruptcy question. There was never a time when Alan made me feel that I was imposing on him. To the contrary, he never rushed me out the door, and his making the time to sit with me clearly showed how much he enjoyed mentoring students, and how much he loved analyzing the law. Alan's impact on his students did not end upon graduation. Like he was to so many others, Alan was my mentor for my entire career. I'll never forget the first piece of advice he gave me as my third year in law school was winding down and graduation was around the corner. Having received an offer from a New York City law firm, where associates typically held degrees from Columbia, Yale, and Harvard, I hesitated about accepting the position. Thankfully, Alan was there to give me confidence. Without hesitation, he said, "You have to reach for it. I have no doubt you'll succeed. You have to believe in yourself." As an associate at that firm, and even after I made partner, Alan would be the first person I called whenever I had any kind of success, whether in courtrooms or the board. Alan was always interested in hearing about my day, and was always encouraging. The conversation would naturally move from the law to sports, and of course the family. Alan loved his family. He was a wonderful husband and father. That love is reflected in his wife Jill and his sons Brian and Craig and their families. As my lifelong mentor and my friend, Alan knew it was my dream to someday become a bankruptcy judge. With that goal in mind, and to hone my legal skills, Alan encouraged me to participate in panel discussions on bankruptcy and commercial law. And of course, it was Alan who gave me my first speaking opportunity. He asked me to replace him on a panel in Washington, D.C. when I was just a third-year associate. Needless to say, I prepared round the clock, so I would not let Alan down. Alan also encouraged me to write on timely topics in the ever-changing world of bankruptcy. Again, it was Alan who gave me the opportunity to publish. He asked me to pen a couple of chapters for a book on bankruptcy strategy, and later asked me to serve as a contributing author to Collier's Bankruptcy Practice Guide. Finally, Alan gave me the opportunity to teach. Hofstra Law School needed an adjunct professor to teach the bankruptcy law course for the evening division. Alan reached out to me. I was thrilled. But I must admit, when I proudly explained to my wife, Joanne, that I would be teaching at Hofstra Law School, her response was a little ego-deflating. "Let me get this straight," she said. "Alan Resnick will be teaching the bankruptcy course on a day, and you will be teaching at night? Why would anyone want to take this course?" She had a point, and Alan and I had a good laugh over that for a number of years. 3 years ago, I told Alan I plan to apply for the bankruptcy judge position in Central Islip here in Eastern District. Of course, he was encouraging and brimming with confidence. Because of him, I had a solid foundation in law, had made wise career choices, and had speaking, writing, and teaching experience, all of which helped me in my quest to become a bankruptcy judge. At my investiture ceremony, the first person I publicly thanked was Alan. As he has done for countless other students, Alan Resnick changed my life, and his influence will continue to guide me in everything I do. Like all of his students, I will try to carry on his legacy. He will live on in every decision I write, in every student, associate, or law clerk I mentor, and in every class I teach. This semester, I am teaching Alan's bankruptcy course here at the law school. As I prepare my weekly class lectures, I hear Alan's voice telling me to be practical, to use hypotheticals, and to break things down so the students understand the core concepts and master the tools to solve any bankruptcy problem. Because Alan played such a pivotal role in my life, twice a week, since the beginning of the semester, when I arrived at the law school to teach, I follow the same simple ritual. Before going to my classroom, I make my way to the second floor of the building. First, I find a photograph of the young Alan Resnick that hangs on the wall, the Alan I remember so well. I think of him teaching with a twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face. Pacing back and forth in the classroom, doing what he loved, telling the story of bankruptcy. Then I look at his corner office, now sadly empty. I tell Alan I am doing the best for his students, and I thank him for all he has done and all he continues to do for me. Then I go upstairs to teach and talk about Jones's shoe store.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Resnick, and I am Professor Resnick's eldest son, one of two sons, along with my brother Craig here, and it is an honor to be speaking here on behalf of my entire family and to have everybody here. I was actually born in October of 1974, so I knew my father for basically exactly the same time. Time as Brad, Lou, and Stu, although 2 years longer than Eric, though those 2 years were pretty fuzzy for me. As Stu mentioned, I was actually the same weight as I am now. So when I was born, my father was 26, and he had gone from being a kid, living in an apartment in Cambridge with my mother, to being a real adult, full-time professor here at Hofstra, a homeowner here on Long Island, and a father. And the span of my life has been the same as Hofstra Law School, which is just over 4 decades. And basically together over the 4+ decades, we kind of grew up together, connected by my father. And so for all that time, I remember hearing just countless stories from my father about just how wonderful and how supportive this place has been. Now, in 1974, my father had offers from several New York law schools, and he chose to come to Hofstra, welcoming the opportunity to help shape a curriculum from the beginning and to be a pioneer in forming a new law school. He interviewed with 8 faculty members, who at the time he thought was the hiring committee, but it turns out it was the entire faculty. He loved the spirit of entrepreneurship and academic freedom that the school represented. It had an exciting dean, Monroe Friedman, who was a controversial legal ethics scholar who had written a provocative article at the time arguing that a criminal defense lawyer should be entitled to, ethically permitted to allow their client to commit perjury on the stand, as long as the lawyer tried to convince the client not to. Now, regardless of what you think of the merits of that idea, my father was thrilled to join a school that would encourage that kind of outside-the-box thinking. Apparently, Justice Warren Burger was not as excited. He tried to disbar Monroe for writing the article. Now, my father's career was almost cut very short. In the beginning, when he was teaching contracts in UCC, the Associate Dean, Aaron Tversky, recommended my father to consult with the Court of Appeals judge, New York State Court of Appeals judge, Jacob Fuchsberg, on cases that he had before the court. And my father took great pride in doing that. And then one day he got a call from the former judge, Harold Tyler, who was then a partner at Patterson-Belknap. And Tyler informed my father that he was working with a New York State Ethics Commission on an investigation of Judge Fuchsberg for violating a judicial canon on consulting with people who are not involved in the case, such as law professors, and not telling the parties. Tyler said he was going to send an associate to my father's office to interview him. So in walks this 30-year-old associate. My father said, "I am Professor Resnick," and the young kid said, "Hi, I'm Rudolph Giuliani." Sorry. So my father and the future mayor of New York, and maybe, who knows, cabinet member someday, we'll say it again, they had a very pleasant conversation, and my father remembers him as being a very nice and friendly young man. And shortly thereafter, the Ethics Committee rendered an opinion and censured Judge Fuchsberg for something else, but actually cleared him of this wrongdoing, because as it turns out, the canon of ethics had just been put into place, and Judge Fuchsberg successfully convinced the ethics panel that he wasn't aware of it. So even though my father did nothing wrong, since the obligation to report was on the judge, he was very, very concerned that this would reflect poorly on him. And the next day, there was a front-page article in the New York Law Journal that listed the 6 law professors that the judge had been consulting with. And my father got called into the dean's office, who held up the article and in a nasty voice said, "Do you know what this is?" My father thought he was going to clean out his desk. And Monroe said, "This is the best advertising." It listed 6 professors, 3 from Columbia, 2 from NYU, and 1 from the brand new Hofstra Law School. You can't buy this kind of press. So they had a good laugh at that. Now, at that time, as you know, Stu was teaching the bankruptcy course, and didn't like it very much. I guess he had his sights set on more presidential endeavors at the time, who knows. So 2 years before the bankruptcy code was enacted, my father took over the course. And during his first year, he too was 1 week ahead of the students in reading. But a month into it, he really fell in love and was completely hooked. Now, although I did not attend Hofstra Law School, I did have the pleasure of witnessing him teach a class here once, when I was about 13 years old. I had an older friend who was interested in law school, so my father invited both of us to attend one of his classes. And he was teaching a very complex topic, the 1111B election. And he asked this impossibly hard question. Now, he planted me with the answer. So I was 13 at the time, and my son's over there. And I raised my hands from the back, and I gave this impossibly, this really intelligent answer. I'm sure a much more intelligent answer that I could give today. And to the shock of everybody else in the class. Some people actually didn't even realize I was planted with the answer, and I was after it, "I can't believe you're raising such a bankruptcy prodigy." But that was not how I ended up following it in his footsteps. In the late 90s, I had gone in a different direction. I was in my early 20s, and I was finishing up getting my music degrees from Juilliard. I was a drummer and percussionist for Broadway shows, playing nights and weekends. And many people probably assume that at that point, as a young musician, my father was kind of nudging me to law school, maybe suggesting it, planting the seeds. But that wasn't true. He was actually incredibly supportive of my music career. He loved nothing more than coming to see the Broadway shows that I was playing in and my concerts. And I even actually got my musical talent from him. He was a trumpet player in high school, and as you heard, a great dancer. I got my rhythm from him, and he was very encouraging of my music career. When I told him that I was thinking of going to law school, he was delighted, but seemed genuinely as surprised as everybody else who knew me. I didn't know at the time what I was going to do with my law degree, but I didn't think I was going to become a bankruptcy lawyer. But ultimately, I think I really couldn't escape the gravitational pull to do what he was doing. I saw how much he loved what he was doing. I saw how much he enjoyed the field and his career. He never pushed me in that direction. I just saw how much he loved what he was doing, and he was just such a strong example that I was naturally, I think, driven in that direction. And that led me to Davis Polk in the bankruptcy group, where I've been for 14 wonderful years. Now, most of you don't need me to tell you what an amazing influence on our profession he has been on the thousands of his students and colleagues and other practitioners. Countless letters, cards, and emails have poured in to me and my family since his passing, expressing tremendous gratitude for his friendship and guidance, and some people referring to him as the most important influence on their career. My father did care so deeply about his students when they were here and thereafter, and he did help them tremendously in terms of getting jobs and counseling them on career transitions. And in fact, 3 of his students are now working with me at Davis Polk. And every time I saw my father, literally every time, there was this awkward silence because he knew that I was kind of sick of hearing the question, and I would just sit there and I'd give him this look that's like, all right, you can ask now. And he'd say, how's Michelle McGrill doing? How's Steve Carino doing? How's Michael Sender doing? Like, he just wanted to know how his students were doing at Davis Polk. And I'd say, they're still doing great, Dad. Now, beyond teaching and practicing law, he really did love the public service aspect of it. His work with the Rules Committee and the NBC, this wasn't work for him. He wasn't paid. It was really part of his way of giving back and trying to make the bankruptcy world more efficient, more equitable for those whose misfortune put them in the place of needing to take advantage of the bankruptcy code. But on top of it all, he was an amazing family man. No matter how busy he was with work, he always made time for my mother, for me, for Craig, for Ani and Anna, and his 5 amazing grandchildren, Max, Ada, who he loved more than anybody in the entire world. And he was a very active grandpa. He was not just a smiling grandpa in the rocking chair. He was very active. He applied his brilliant teaching skills to grandparenting. He took the kids to Washington, D.C. He taught them about American history and about the Constitution. He was very, very active. And in the end, he was particularly grateful for the opportunity to say goodbye to his family and to some close friends. And this is when he told me that being an analytic law professor really came in handy. He called the fact that age 68 was his number the irrefutable fact in a law school hypothetical, one that cannot be controlled. So he wasn't getting depressed by it, and he wasn't going to focus on it. He was going to focus on what he could control. And what he could control was how he handled his last 2 weeks after he was informed by his doctors that they were out of treatment options, and how people would remember him. And he spent the remaining time expressing to family and friends his overwhelming sense of pride for all of his personal and professional accomplishments, expressing gratitude for the great fortune he had during his life. He said he never worked a day in his life because of how much he loved his career. He was also proud of the nobility of his profession as a teacher and an influence on so many, and as a scholar and practitioner in the bankruptcy field, where he always said that we get to make the world a better place by giving individuals and corporations who have failed a fresh start, a chance for the fallen to rise up and succeed again, often saving hundreds or thousands of jobs of hardworking Americans in the process. He had meaningful, uplifting, and inspiring conversations with each of us, especially his grandchildren, who he encouraged to live their lives in the same spirit that he lived his. He was a professor, a teacher in the deepest sense until the very end. So on behalf of my entire family, I wanted to conclude with a huge thank you to Stu and Eric and the entire Hofstra Law School family for all of the intellectual stimulation and professional and personal support and the friendships that my father made here over his 42 years. It is so hard for me and my family to come to terms with this unfathomable loss. Being here today among his colleagues and his friends who loved him so much, gives us tremendous comfort. So thank you to Stu and Eric and Judge Garcella and Brad for your help and participation in this event. Thank you to everybody for coming, and if you were here today, I know you would be incredibly moved and honored by this wonderful event.